Sharing a living space can be a challenge, but sometimes it turns into a living nightmare. These are the true, bone-chilling tales of roommates from hell. Join us as we delve into disturbing stories that will make you think twice before signing that next lease. Finding the perfect apartment in New York City is a Herculean task. For Jenna Thompson, a 26-year-old graphic designer fresh out of her grad program, the search was long and arduous, but then she found it. A charming two-bedroom in the East Village with exposed brick, a modern kitchen, and rent that wouldn't completely decimate her bank account. There was only one catch: she needed a roommate. After an exhausting series of interviews with potential roommates, Jenna was about to give up when she met Vanessa. Vanessa was everything Jenna had hoped for: friendly, financially stable, and seemingly sane. They clicked immediately, bonding over a shared love of indie films and artisanal coffee. It seemed like the perfect match. Within a week, Vanessa moved in, bringing with her a sense of excitement and a cat named Whiskers. At first, everything was perfect. They cooked dinner together, watched movies, and explored the neighborhood. But it wasn't long before the cracks began to show. The first sign of trouble came in the form of small, seemingly insignificant annoyances. Jenna would come home to find the living room littered with Vanessa's clothes, or the sink filled with dirty dishes. Vanessa always had an excuse. She'd been too tired, too busy, or had simply forgotten. Jenna tried to be understanding. After all, everyone had their off days. But then there were the noises. Strange, unsettling noises in the middle of the night. Jenna would wake up to hear whispers and soft, eerie music coming from Vanessa's room. When she asked Vanessa about it, she would just laugh and say she was watching a movie or talking to a friend on the phone. One night, Jenna woke up to find Vanessa standing over her bed, staring at her with a vacant expression. "Vanessa, what are you doing?" Jenna asked, her voice trembling. Vanessa blinked, as if coming out of a trance. "Oh, sorry, Jenna. I must have been sleepwalking. It happens sometimes, sleepwalking." Jenna wasn't so sure. The look in Vanessa's eyes had been too intense, too deliberate, but she brushed it off, convincing herself that it was nothing to worry about. As the weeks went by, the situation grew worse. Jenna started to notice things going missing. Small items like keys, makeup, and even food from the fridge. She found strange symbols drawn on scraps of paper scattered around the apartment. And then there were the whispers. Jenna could hear them even when Vanessa wasn't home, faint and indistinct, but undeniably there. One evening, Jenna decided to confront Vanessa about everything. She waited until Vanessa had gone out, then went into her room to look for clues. What she found made her blood run cold. Vanessa's room was a mess, but not in the way Jenna had expected. There were dozens of candles, some burned down to stubs, others still fresh. The walls were covered in more of the strange symbols, and in the center of the room was a small altar with what looked like offerings, pieces of jewelry, hair, and other personal items. Jenna's heart pounded in her chest. She grabbed her phone and took pictures of everything, then quickly left the room, her mind racing. What was Vanessa doing? Was she into some kind of dark magic? Jenna didn't know, but she was determined to find out. Jenna decided to stay up and wait for Vanessa to come home. She needed answers, and she wasn't going to let Vanessa brush her off this time. When Vanessa finally walked through the door, Jenna was sitting on the couch, the pictures from Vanessa's room displayed on her phone. "Vanessa, we need to talk," Jenna said, her voice steady despite the fear churning inside her. Vanessa glanced at the phone and sighed. "You went into my room?" "I had to. What the hell is all this?" Jenna demanded, holding up the phone. Vanessa sat down across from her, a strange calmness in her demeanor. "It's not what you think, Jenna. I can explain." "Then explain," Jenna said, her patience wearing thin. Vanessa took a deep breath. "I'm part of a group. We practice a form of spiritualism. Those symbols and the altar, They're part of our rituals. It's nothing dangerous, I promise. Nothing dangerous. Jenna scoffed. You've been creeping around at night taking my things and drawing these freaky symbols everywhere. It feels pretty damn dangerous to me. Vanessa's eyes flashed with anger. You don't understand. These rituals are important to me. They help me connect with my ancestors, with the spiritual world. If you can't respect that, then maybe you're the one with the problem. Jenna stood up, her hands trembling. I can't live like this, Vanessa. You need to stop, or I'm moving out. Vanessa's expression softened. Jenna, I'm sorry if I scared you. I didn't mean to. I'll stop doing the rituals here, okay? Just, please don't leave. Jenna hesitated, her instinct screaming at her to get out, but she wanted to believe Vanessa. She wanted to believe that things could go back to normal. Okay, she said finally, but if anything else happens, I'm gone. For a while, it seemed like things were getting better. Vanessa stopped her late-night activities, and the strange occurrences around the apartment dwindled. But Jenna couldn't shake the feeling that something was still off. She started to notice Vanessa acting more secretive, whispering on the phone late at night, and leaving the apartment at odd hours. One night, Jenna woke up to the sound of chanting. It was low and rhythmic, coming from the living room. She crept out of bed and tiptoed down the hallway, her heart pounding. When she peeked into the living room, she saw Vanessa surrounded by candles, her eyes closed, chanting in a language Jenna didn't recognize. Vanessa, what are you doing? Jenna demanded, her voice breaking the spell. Vanessa's eyes snapped open, and she glared at Jenna. I told you not to interfere, she hissed. Interfere? You're scaring me, Vanessa. This has to stop, Jenna said, backing away. Vanessa stood up, the candles casting eerie shadows on her face. You don't understand the power we're dealing with, Jenna. If you keep pushing, you'll regret it. Jenna fled to her room, locking the door behind her. She knew she couldn't stay there any longer. She needed to leave, and soon. The next morning, Jenna started looking for a new place to live. She didn't care if it was a shoebox in Queens, she just needed to get away from Vanessa. But finding an apartment in New York on short notice was no easy feat. Every place she looked at was either too expensive or already taken. Days turned into weeks, and Jenna grew more desperate. Vanessa's behavior became increasingly erratic. She would disappear for hours, sometimes days, and when she was home she would lock herself in her room, chanting and burning incense. One night, Jenna came home to find the apartment filled with smoke. Panicked, she ran to Vanessa's room and threw open the door. Vanessa was sitting in the middle of a circle of candles, her eyes wild and unfocused. Vanessa, stop. You're going to burn the place down, Jenna screamed, rushing to put out the candles. Vanessa grabbed her arm, her grip like a vice. It's too late, Jenna. They're here. Jenna yanked her arm free and ran out of the apartment, her mind racing. She needed to get out now. She grabbed her phone and called her best friend, Claire. Claire, I need your help. Can I stay with you for a while? Jenna pleaded. Claire didn't hesitate. Of course, Jenna. Come over right now. Jenna packed a bag and left the apartment, not looking back. She didn't know what Vanessa was involved in, but she knew she couldn't stay there any longer. Living with Claire was a relief. For the first time in months, Jenna felt safe. She found a new apartment within a few weeks, a small but cozy studio in Brooklyn. It wasn't perfect, but it was hers. Jenna tried to put the experience with Vanessa behind her, but it wasn't easy. She had nightmares about the chanting, the symbols, and Vanessa's wild eyes. She saw a therapist who helped her process the trauma and move on. One day, Jenna received a call from the building manager of her old apartment. Ms. Thompson, I'm calling to let you know that your former roommate Vanessa has moved out. She left a lot of her belongings behind. Do you want to come by and pick up anything? Jenna hesitated. The thought of going back to that apartment made her skin crawl. No, thank you. You can dispose of it, she said, her voice trembling. She hung up the phone, feeling a strange mix of relief and sadness. Vanessa had been her friend once, but whatever she had gotten involved in had changed her, and Jenna knew she couldn't help her. As she settled into her new life, Jenna vowed to be more careful about choosing roommates in the future. She had learned a valuable lesson: sometimes the perfect apartment isn't worth the horror that comes with it. Months passed, and Jenna's life slowly returned to normal. She made new friends, focused on her career, and even started dating again. But the experience with Vanessa had left a mark on her, a lingering sense of unease that she couldn't quite shake. One evening, Jenna received a message on social media from an unfamiliar account. It was a picture of her old apartment with the caption, "Miss you, Jenna. Come back soon." Her blood ran cold. She blocked the account and tried to forget about it, but the message haunted her. She realized that no matter how far she ran, the past had a way of catching up with her. Jenna decided to share her story online, hoping to warn others about the dangers of choosing the wrong roommate. The response was overwhelming. People from all over the world shared their own roommate horror stories, and Jenna realized she wasn't alone. The experience had been terrifying, but it had also made her stronger. Jenna knew she could face anything life threw at her as long as she trusted her instincts and never let fear control her. As she closed her laptop and looked around her new apartment, Jenna felt a sense of peace. She had survived the nightmare, and she was ready to move forward. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: she would never let anyone make her feel afraid in her own home again. And with that, Jenna turned off the lights and went to bed, finally able to sleep soundly, knowing she was safe. Emily, a fresh college graduate, moved into a charming Victorian house on the outskirts of town. It was the perfect place to start her new job at a local marketing firm. The house was spacious, well-maintained, and had a touch of old-world charm. The only drawback was that the rent was a bit steep for her budget, so she decided to look for a roommate to share the expenses. After placing an ad online, she received several responses. Among them, Sarah's stood out. She was a fellow young professional, friendly, and seemed to have a lot in common with Emily. They met at a local cafe and Emily felt an immediate connection. Sarah was articulate, well-mannered, and had impeccable references. It seemed like a perfect match. Within a week, Sarah moved in. Emily was excited about this new chapter in her life and looked forward to building a great friendship with her new roommate. Little did she know, this decision would lead to a series of events that would change her life forever. Initially, everything seemed perfect. Sarah was courteous, paid her share of the rent on time, and even helped around the house. However, it didn't take long for Emily to notice some strange behaviors. One night, Emily woke up to the sound of whispered conversations coming from Sarah's room. It was 2 a.m., and the walls were thin enough for her to hear snippets of the conversation. It sounded like Sarah was talking to someone, but Emily hadn't seen anyone come in or out of the house. She brushed it off, thinking Sarah was on a late-night phone call. As the days went by, Emily noticed more oddities. Sarah would disappear for hours without a word, only to return with a distant, almost haunted look in her eyes. When Emily asked where she had been, Sarah would give vague answers, mentioning things like taking a walk or running errands. The whispers continued, and Emily often heard strange noises coming from Sarah's room. One night, curiosity got the best of her. She crept up to Sarah's door and pressed her ear against it. What she heard sent chills down her spine. It wasn't just Sarah's voice, there were multiple voices, murmuring in a language Emily couldn't understand. Emily decided to investigate. She waited until Sarah was out of the house and then entered her room. It was surprisingly ordinary, with neatly arranged furniture and personal items. However, one thing caught her eye: a locked drawer in Sarah's desk. Desperate to uncover the truth, Emily searched for the key. She found it hidden in a book on the shelf. With trembling hands, she opened the drawer. Inside, she found a collection of old, tattered books filled with symbols and writings in an unfamiliar language. There were also photographs of Sarah with various people, all of whom had strange, vacant expressions. Among the items was a small, ornate box. Emily opened it and found a set of old keys. One of the keys looked ancient, with intricate engravings. She couldn't shake the feeling that it was important. Determined to find out more, Emily began to explore the house. She remembered that the landlord had mentioned a basement that was used for storage but had never been shown it. Using the set of keys, she found the door to the basement and unlocked it. The basement was dark and damp, with a musty smell that made Emily's skin crawl. She fumbled for a light switch and found an old, flickering bulb. As the dim light filled the room, Emily saw rows of dusty shelves filled with old furniture, boxes, and forgotten belongings. In the far corner of the basement, there was a door. It looked out of place, as if it didn't belong to the original structure of the house. The ornate key she found in Sarah's drawer seemed to fit perfectly into the lock. With a deep breath, Emily turned the key and opened the door. Inside was a small room, lined with shelves containing more of the strange books and artifacts. In the center of the room was a table with a large, ancient-looking book. The pages were filled with more of the strange symbols and drawings of bizarre rituals. Emily realized that Sarah had been practicing some sort of occult magic. Emily was terrified but knew she had to confront Sarah. That evening, she waited anxiously for her roommate to return. When Sarah walked through the door, Emily could see the darkness in her eyes. "Sarah, we need to talk," Emily said, trying to keep her voice steady. Sarah's eyes narrowed. "About what?" "I found the books in your room, and the basement. What are you doing with all of that?" For a moment, there was silence. Then Sarah's expression changed. She seemed to transform before Emily's eyes, her demeanor becoming cold and menacing. "You shouldn't have gone snooping around, Emily," Sarah said, her voice eerily calm. "You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into." Emily backed away, her heart pounding. "What are you talking about?" Sarah took a step closer. "You don't understand. These rituals, they're necessary. They protect me, and now they have to protect you too." Before Emily could react, Sarah lunged at her. They struggled, but Sarah's strength was unnatural. She pinned Emily to the ground and began to chant in the strange language. Just as Emily felt herself slipping into unconsciousness, a sudden crash interrupted the ritual. The front door burst open, and a group of people rushed in. They overpowered Sarah and dragged her away, binding her hands and feet. One of the men turned to Emily. "Are you okay?" Emily nodded, still in shock. "Who are you?" "We're with a special unit that deals with cases like this," the man explained. "Sarah has been on our radar for a while. She's involved in some very dark practices. You're lucky we got here in time." They escorted Emily out of the house and explained that Sarah had been using ancient rituals to summon and control malevolent spirits. The voices Emily had heard were the spirits Sarah had bound to do her bidding. The group had been tracking her for months, waiting for the right moment to intervene. The house was sealed off, and Emily was given a new place to stay. The experience left her shaken, but she was grateful to be safe. She started seeing a therapist to help her cope with the trauma, and slowly began to rebuild her life. Months later, Emily received a letter from the special unit. They had successfully neutralized the threats and assured her that Sarah would never harm anyone again. Emily felt a sense of relief but knew that the memories of her time with Sarah would haunt her forever. As she settled into her new life, Emily became more cautious about who she trusted. The experience had taught her that appearances could be deceiving and that true horror often lurks just beneath the surface. Emily eventually found a new roommate, someone who came highly recommended by friends. This time, she was much more careful about getting to know them before making any commitments. The trauma of her experience with Sarah lingered, but Emily refused to let it define her. She immersed herself in her work and hobbies, finding solace in the normalcy of everyday life. Slowly, she began to heal. She joined a local support group for people who had experienced traumatic events, finding comfort in the shared stories and mutual support. One day, while attending a support group meeting, Emily met Jack, a kind and understanding man who had his own share of experiences. They bonded over their shared pasts and gradually developed a deep friendship. Jack helped Emily see that it was possible to move forward without forgetting the past. With time, Emily and Jack's friendship blossomed into a romantic relationship. They supported each other, helping to heal the wounds left by their respective traumas. Emily finally felt like she was regaining control of her life. Just when Emily thought she had left the past behind, she received a mysterious package at her door. Inside was one of the old books from Sarah's collection, and a note that simply read, "I'm sorry." Fear gripped her heart as she realized that Sarah had somehow managed to reach out to her from wherever she was being held. Emily knew she had to confront her fears once and for all. With Jack by her side, Emily contacted the special unit and informed them of the package. They assured her that Sarah was still securely detained, but the incident left Emily uneasy. She decided to delve into the book, hoping to find answers. Emily and Jack spent countless hours studying the book, trying to decipher its contents. They discovered that Sarah had been trying to protect herself from a powerful entity that she had inadvertently summoned. The rituals were meant to bind the entity and keep it from harming her. Realizing that the entity might still pose a threat, Emily and Jack worked with the special unit to perform a counter-ritual to banish it once and for all. The process was grueling and dangerous, but they were determined to put an end to the nightmare. After a long and harrowing night, the counter-ritual was completed. The entity was banished, and the oppressive atmosphere that had lingered around Emily lifted. She finally felt a sense of peace that she hadn't experienced in a long time. Emily and Jack continued their lives, forever changed by their experiences, but stronger for having faced them together. The horror of Emily's past became a distant memory, a reminder of her resilience and the importance of trust and friendship. Years later, Emily and Jack got married and started a family. They moved into a new home, filled with light and laughter. The old Victorian house remained a part of Emily's past, a place where she had faced unimaginable horrors, but had also found the strength to overcome them. Emily often thought about Sarah and the darkness that had consumed her. She hoped that wherever Sarah was, she had found some semblance of peace. Emily had learned to forgive, not for Sarah's sake but for her own. It was the final step in her journey of healing. As she watched her children play in the garden, Emily knew that she had finally moved beyond the shadows of her past. She had built a life filled with love and hope, a testament to her strength and resilience. And with Jack by her side, she knew that she could face whatever the future held. Sarah thought she'd seen it all. Loud partiers, passive-aggressive note-leavers, the occasional pilferer of the milk carton. But then came Martha. Martha, with her collection of taxidermied butterflies lining the living room walls, wasn't inherently scary. It was the butterflies themselves, their lifeless wings forever ajar in silent screams. Even more unsettling was Martha's habit of talking to them at night, whispering secrets in a language that made Sarah's hair stand on end. Then there was the food. Martha believed in a very specific raw food diet. Not just vegetables, mind you, but an assortment of questionable things. Sprouted grains that looked like alien parts, slabs of uncooked fish that smelled like low tide. The fridge became a biohazard zone, a science experiment gone wrong. Sleep was another casualty. Martha was a night owl who practiced the ancient art of didgeridoo. The droning, vibrating sounds would seep into Sarah's dreams, turning them into technicolor nightmares filled with bouncing kangaroos and boomerangs. One evening, Sarah came home to find the apartment bathed in an eerie red light. Martha, adorned in a makeshift robe made of what looked like bedsheets, was chanting in the living room, surrounded by a circle of lit candles. Smoke filled the air, and in the center of the circle lay a bowl overflowing with mealworms. That was it. Sarah couldn't take it anymore. With a heavy heart and a lingering fear of taxidermied butterflies coming to life, she packed her bags and left a note, a very polite, non-accusatory note, on the kitchen counter. Finding a new place was a nightmare, but compared to Martha and her didgeridoo, a leaky faucet felt like a spa retreat. Sarah vowed never to underestimate the power of a well-written roommate ad again. From then on, normal wasn't just a preference, it was a requirement.